on this episode of Edge of the Web.
You as a user are saying, I want to ask the machine X, right? And then you feed it the data and you say, okay, is X true or false? Or what are the degrees of this? Mm-hmm. So you don't feed everything to a machine and it says, hey, here's 20 insights for you, right? It doesn't work that way right now.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
All right. Hey, again, welcome back to Edge. And we certainly appreciate everybody joining us on the live stream each and every week, 3 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. Thanks for joining us. To let you know what we're doing here, this is Edge of the Web, and we're broadcasting from Edge Media Studios every Thursday and located in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. And we're constantly bringing you the latest trends in digital marketing and influencers from around the planet. Certainly want to invite you to check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. The title sponsor for the show is Site Strategics, our parent company. We're focused on the agile methodology of digital marketing. And if you want to know what that is results-based, flexible, nimble marketing, to say the least, based on tactics that we're experimenting on, getting results, and then be able to change directions based on those results. That's kind of what you should be expecting out of your marketing agencies anyway, right? So if you're interested in what we can do for you, go ahead and give us a shout over at sitestrategics.com, S-I-T-E, strategics.com, or just give us a call at 877-SEO for web or 877-736-4932. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. I'm the CEO of Site Strategics, and as well as the founder of Edge Media Studios. And the reason that we do this show, and we tell you every show, because we want to make sure that for the new guests that are coming on, the new listeners in our audience, we want to make sure why we do what we do. There's so many confusing things, to say the least, in the digital marketing realm. New things that are happening all the time. And on top of that, unfortunately, some bad advice in the digital marketing space. So we want to be able to, and have been using this show for the last 8 years, to debunk, demystify, as well as educate the digital marketers, the new marketers, as well as maybe some seasoned marketers as well, to keep their powder dry. But guess what? We also keep our powder dry as well. So we're constantly educating ourselves so we can plug these tactics right back in to our own clients. That's why we do why we do what we do. My gosh, that's not too difficult to actually say, is it, Tom?
No, I don't know. You struggle with weird words. So
I do struggle with weird words.
You struggle with the words.
But Tom never struggles
never,
with the...
Never.
No, bang goes the dynamite. I'm just saying.
Bang goes the dynamite. That's right. That's exactly how it goes.
Tom Broadbeck is a director of digital media here, sir, and my culprit in crime here at Edge of the Web Radio. So how's everything going on your side of the fence?
Hey, we're surviving the bomb cyclone.
The bomb cyclone. That's what the term is. So what's going on here in Indy?
So it's essentially what it is a hurricane... a Category 2 hurricane that's developed over the Midwest over the last day or so. So Colorado has been getting hit with crazy snow. We're getting hit with some tornadoes and stuff here in southern Indiana. But bomb cyclone.
Bomb cyclone. That's a brand new marketing term.
Yeah.
And they got to invent some concepts every once in a while to keep their...
Florida too.
Well, we certainly want to introduce our guest here. He's hanging out, listening to our rambling commentary. Let's introduce Brad Geddes. He's the co-founder of Adalysis, right? Adalysis?
Adalysis.
It's like analysis, but with a D.
There you go.
How in the world I tripped on that? I got it. I've said that 15 times before the show. Adalysis. Hi, Brad. How you doing, sir? Sorry I botched your company's name.
No worries. It's either really easy or impossible, right? Like most things.
So the words Aaron struggles with.
I'm struggling with the words today. I don't know what's going on. Hey, Brad, it's great to be able to have you back on the show. It's almost 3 years to the day that we've had you on the show.
That's right. It's been quite a while, and you guys have grown significantly as far as production value and getting some great, Great tips to listeners, right?
Thank you very much. And boy, I would love to go back to March 16th, 2016 and see. We got to pull that up in the show notes. Some of the snippets from that show. Yeah, well, I think we had shag carpeting. Did we have video at that point in time?
On our end.
Yeah, on our end.
But not their end, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, so we certainly had the shag carpeting walls from the radio station to be proud of, right?
Yeah. Good times.
Well, I'm glad we didn't scare you off and that you're back for another round, Brad. And we lead in every show with a take on the digital marketing news. You game to dive in there?
Sure.
All right, so let's take you through this week's digital marketing news.
I was very excited to start my reportings.
This week's trending topics.
All right, so jumping into it here from search engine land, Google Ads to sunset average position reporting metric later this year. This is from Ginny Marvin over at Search Engine Land. So I know, Tom, this is not your regular basket.
I am here to learn this show.
Yeah. All right, so give us a snippet of what Ginny's talking about there.
Yeah, so apparently the signs have been popping up, according to Ginny, over the last year, but Google will retire. They said sunset.
Is that a nice, calm term?
Yeah, it's calm. Google will bomb cyclone average position. I like that one better. Google's ending average position reporting from Google Ads this last year. As you said, you can point to two key areas of why this is most important and significant. Instead, in November, Google introduced 4 new ad position metrics to indicate the percentage of impressions and impression share your ads received in the absolute top, in the top of the page, and ad slots. With the announcement, Google explained the average position, which has been around long before ads were removed from the right rail of the desktop search results, had never been intended to show where your ads were showing on the page. Instead, it reflects the order that your ad appears versus the other ads.
So, I mean, the point.
From what I understand, is that's a common way to bid, right? The average position. So, what does this mean, Brad?
In reality, the new metrics are more precise, right, for understanding visibility. But what Google failed to say in this, right, is the fact that they don't have these new metrics going back, say, a year of time, and you're not going to have average position when we hit like December time. So all the companies who do year-over-year trending to project their information, it's all gone. Right, so you've got to do huge data dumps. Per account, we've been averaging about 100 megabytes of data exports just to save it.
Yep.
And that's the hard part, is when you lose the trending. It's also a simple number, right? If I say, hey, your average position is 1 versus 2, anyone can comprehend that. Yeah. Saying, hey, your average top absolute impression share is 32%, and your top impression share is 74%. Most small businesses have no clue what I just said, right? So we've removed the simplification of what's actually happening.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, Tom, it's not entirely a bidding metric. You can't bid to a particular position because of the quality score and all the different factors. I mean, Google actually limits you from getting in and being able to acquire those positions. You got to earn those positions to a particular degree. But it's a great reference tool it's almost like a benchmark of all of these efforts have been able to get us to this particular average position. And it's a good sounding board of how effective the campaign is. Right, Brad?
Exactly, right. Imagine if you logged into Search Console.
Right.
And instead of seeing, hey, for this keyword, we're 3, you see for this keyword, you're 42%.
Yeah.
Right. And now you got to go, well, what does that actually mean? All right. So that's, from an SEO standpoint, it's like your Search Console data is dumped. No one can give you average position on Search Console or any ranking tool. And now you have all these random percentages to work with.
Right.
And that's really the harder part. It's the numbers are better in many ways, but a lot of companies want the simplification. That's what's just gone.
Yeah, and I do like the impression share. I like the grids and the graphics that they're giving us, but you got to be able to interpret that, and you got to be able to compare these. And it's a very simple comparison to be able to say, hey, we were ranking average in 5, now we're 2. Man, Is it a gamification thing that they're trying to push away from still?
No, it's more if you so what from Google's perspective, right?
Mhm.
Which we know they often don't understand what our businesses are.
Right.
They are trying to say position doesn't matter. What matters is your visibility. So what you should know is when are you in position one? When are you top of page?
Mhm.
When are you on a search page but not top of page? And they're trying to change to a visibility metric.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I understand, Dan. I just they're wanting us to and not only interpret but also appreciate the the uh, the physicality of, I shouldn't say physicality, but the different aspects of the campaign as opposed to just one single metric, because there are a number of other areas, especially from the impression share as it applies to your competitors, because it gives you much more of a topographical perspective almost, as opposed to their one, we're three, and it's it'd be a binary concept. But anyway, it's sad to see that average positioning go, right?
Yep.
Now they're gonna bomb cyclone this thing. That's what you said?
Bomb cyclone.
All right, so from Search Engine Journal over with Matt Southern, always writing some good stuff. Google Shopping ads to automatically appear in Google Images. Now we talked about Google image ads here a couple weeks ago, but this article is actually just giving us an additional awareness of the images are now actually a default placement option for Google ad users who are actually running shopping ads. An email went out late last week to inform advertisers of the change. Previously, users had to manually opt in to the Search Partner Network in order to have shopping ads displayed in Google Images. The images section of Google Search was previously part of the Search Partner Network. Now it's a part of Google's own search network. What's also more important is that the Google ad users, what's important for ad users to know is that about the change is that shopping ads will now start appearing on these images themselves. So they're automatically deploying that, and it's a shift of the naming of the network itself, but they were putting it into control of the users, and now they're automatically being rolled into that. Brad, do you think that's going to suck in a heck of a lot more clicks in that space?
Sure. So this is a good change, right?
Mhm.
And Google made things very complicated by saying there's Google.com, and then we're going to bundle Google Local, Google Images with our partners, which makes no sense, right? Because they're
Right.
still Google-owned properties. Yeah, if you're looking for dishwashers and you're looking at images of them, sure, shopping ads make sense. It's a natural extension.
Mhm.
It's one of those you wonder why it wasn't done 3 years ago, quite honestly. It's kind of like they're late to their own party in this
Yeah.
one. So it's all good. I see no downsides of this change.
So those shopping ads are going to, if you're doing it right, if you want to really capitalize on what people expect whenever they're searching in Google Images, right? Is that going to change the mediums, the artifacts of your image management? Because previously we got
Google's very specific on your shopping ads, right?
okay.
The biggest thing is, are you going to be able to see the difference
Mhm.
in the metrics? So Google several years ago, right? They had rolled out an image ad extension for paid search ads. You could show images in Google search results.
Right.
And we had clients who had 76% click-through rates on non-branded terms, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And it's because people were clicking on the images to go see, the Sydney Opera House, right? Or see, here is whatever, and they weren't realizing their ads.
Right.
So the potential downside of this, right, is someone is still in that looking phase, not shopping,
Mhm.
and they're just looking at images and they just click on the shopping ads, and that's the marketing downside.
Yeah.
From Google's standpoint, it's more inventory. There's no downside from their standpoint. Advertisers need to watch their metrics a little bit on this one, but overall it should be a good change.
Yeah.
But Google's specific on the imagery you can use in shopping.
Good.
So you can't just go crazy and make new standard images because they'll be disapproved from shopping feeds.
Got it. So advertisers shouldn't be concerned about new formats because they're still going to use the same 10 or 12 formats that were usually moving out there. Obviously, the images are going to be more square and boxy as opposed to the banners or the skyscrapers that we use, right? So what is the positioning of these ads? Is it coming across as a banner across the top?
Yeah,
or
it looks like a scrolling. So I Googled big green chair in the images search within Google. And so at the top, there's a scrolling carousel like you would see on a normal Google search, but they're just appearing in images now. So it's interesting, at least from an SEO standpoint. John and Gary have been very adamant here recently, I feel like, in saying that SEOs need to focus more in images. And I just feel like they're prepping us for something, and I think this might be the first of many updates to come within the Google Images side of things of traffic for websites.
Yeah, that's an astute observation. Have you been seeing some of that? At least from a ad space, have you been seeing some parallels that we're talking about here from the image side of things?
Yeah, some, right? So Google does not let you easily see which network a click took place on.
Right.
So in GA, you can easily see, hey, here's our traffic from images.google versus google.com. On the ad side, Google doesn't give you that, right? So you're looking at your search partner data versus Google data, but search partners is more than just one. So you can't do a great analysis on it.
Yeah. Wondering, are they going to be able to break out that as a true separate network so we can see? Because ultimately, if people are, this is rudimentary, but if people are clicking on ads because they think they're image searches, right? That's a lot of expense going out that ultimately are not connecting to what the user's intent was, just like Brad was saying.
Sure, yeah, and then I think Google's smart. So I Googled Indianapolis, right, just to see if there were any ads there, and there was no. So there was another button for Children's Museum to see if there was like ads based around the Indianapolis Children's Museum, and there wasn't there.
Got it.
So I think a big green chair search triggers in Google's algorithm that's somebody who's ready to buy versus somebody who's just clicking around and looking for info and pictures. So
got it.
Yeah, well, the ones really to look to see are people who are more in things that get used in design spaces, right? So a fridge, you may be redoing your entire kitchen, right? Remodeling stuff. Is Google going to pop in things for remodeling? And so it's a lot of those where there is an eventual intent to buy, but shopping ads have, really high bounce rates, but pretty high conversion rates. So someone's clicking in, buying that object, or they're just leaving, right, completely. And so that's the spaces that have to watch of how far Google decides to match where they show those shopping ads and images.
Yeah, it aligns to the contextual knowledge that Google has, like you're saying. So, all right, so the advertisers should very well know about this, but don't freak out because you're ultimately going to be benefiting from this in the long term. Last article over at Marketing Land, and this is from Ginny Marvin as well. Google Ad Manager is adopting first price auctions for programmatic display and video. This decision actually comes amid industry calls for greater transparency and simplicity in programmatic. So the core here is that we're, well, actually, you know what? Brad, lay this one out for us, because I first want there's two convolutions here. I want our audience to understand the programmatic side of things, and then what we're talking about from a first price auction perspective.
Sure.
Line it up for us.
All right. So first, let's lay it out how it is today, right, to show the difference.
Sure.
So what we use right now for DoubleClick in, also for Google Ads, is Google uses a second price auction based upon the Victory auction model, which means Google looks at, like you said earlier, right, your quality score, your bid, your ad extension determines, this is your ad rank, right? These artificial numbers. Now you pay just enough to beat, right, the position below you. So if everything were even, your quality score is 10, your competitors are 10, you're bidding $1, your competitor is bidding 50 cents, you pay 51 cents. Right? A penny more. So everything inflated right between what you need to beat and your bid is you don't pay that cost. In a first price auction, you would pay the $1, not the 51 cents. So you can't just go in and say, hey, we're willing to bid a lot because we know we're only going to pay a penny more than we need to.
Right. Now
you're stuck at that bid. And so since so many DSPs and platforms are based upon a second price auction, and some networks have gone first price, this is a massive change because you can't just say, hey, we're willing to bid, $10 CPM for CPM systems or a, $4 click because you're paying $1.50 right now, you'll suddenly pay that for. And this is one you really need to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the most, right? When you hear like most you ever want to pay, that is truly the most. So Google is going to make a ton of money here.
Yeah, they are.
Right? They're now taking that entire, gap, right, that existed. It's in their pocket.
That's a money grab right there.
This is a massive change. I think this is the others, there changes, whatever. Mm-hmm. This is a big change.
The more pedestrian description. I appreciate that layout because that added so much clarity to it. But the eBay model, is either you bid up or I'm willing to bid to this amount and only this amount. Mm-hmm. So instead of actually aggressively bidding up, now where those advertisers were setting that max CPC, they're committing to that right out of the gate, and they don't see. Here's the deal: is that the experimentation on bid strategy is now going to be front and center, as opposed to the bit more, I wouldn't say lazy, but the bit more of a automatic or more comfortable scenario of, okay, I've got a budget and I'll only extend this much across my bids. Now you got to be a heck of a lot more attentive to what's happening in each and every each and every campaign that you're rocking and rolling with, right?
Well, yeah, and I think what we'll see. So right now, right, you might go in and say, all right, we're gonna, spend $20,000 this month on programmatic, and here's our first party cookie pool that we really want to match people to. So that's our number one. And we're willing to pay more for it. Here's our target CPA, right? In a lot of CPA-based systems. Mm-hmm. And then this is our group, though. Here's our demographics. And if these people here can see our ad too, right? And you might give all this information, and the immediate person at the company sets this up for you. And you don't see all the math in every decision, right? You just see, here's the results.
Right.
You would no longer do that, right? You would now have to break it up and say, this is our first party buy. We're willing to do this. This is our first party buy of prospecting, right? Versus maybe a remarket or something. This is our true third party cookie, right? Data matching. And so it makes you need to, probably we're going to see a lot of buys, smaller numbers, but there are going to be a little more buys in total, right? Because you have to really put your money behind your true first party stuff first, and third party being a backfill that's going to have like, some overall cap for all spends. And so it's going to be tricky. Yeah,
no, that's what I'm thinking as well. But again, you laid it out quite easily. I appreciate it. So with that, that's our wrap up of the news, and we're certainly going to deep dive in to our next interview. Just really unpacking all of ad discussion. But we do want to make sure that you join our newsletter each and every week. We're sending over some great information to you about who we're about to interview, who we talked to last week, as well as a lot of these news items and much more. So go over to edgeofthewebradio.com and be able to join right there at the top of the page, or text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, and you can sign up right there. Just don't do it while you're driving, please. So there was the gratuitous commercial, right?
Unless you're in a self-driving car.
Keep an eye out on the self-driving car. Yeah. Have you seen any of those around here recently?
I heard they were testing them out at was it CES earlier?
Oh, really?
CES maybe.
I'm pretty scared of those things.
You had to sign like this lengthy waiver and everything, from what I heard.
It's just another level of Skynet that we start seeing.
Just think of all the extra advertising time that we'll have.
Heads up display that's 85% advertising.
It's more time on the phones.
We get plenty of time on the phones just in the John.
Yeah. Well, there's more. There'll be more.
All right. So follow all the trending topics, and please don't follow our line of conversation over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Let's deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Brad Geddes, co-founder of Adalysis.
All right, Brad, let's introduce you to our audience again. If you didn't catch Brad 3 years ago, he's back in the channel today, and we want to to lay out Brad's history. Brad Geddes has been involved with online marketing since 1998, y'all. He's seen a lot over these years. I just appreciate it because that's where I was too. Over the years, he's provided a variety of consulting services, including usability, conversion optimization, product positioning, and agency consulting. Brad is one of the only 2 Google-Approved AdWords Seminar Leaders and has conducted more than 100 official supported AdWords seminars and has spoken at more than 125 conventions and conferences around the world. That's pretty laudable there, sir. So how do you get into that coveted Google-Approved AdWords Seminar Leader spot?
Oh gosh, I mean that's from 2006. So going back 13 years, right? Google was trying to educate users because PPC is pretty complex, and they had approached us about helping them out with this project. And so myself and Stasia Holdren, who is I think she now works at Google, were approached by Google about doing it. And so they approved us back then. And while we left their side in 2010 or so, they gave us a perpetual license to always use that in perpetuity going forward. That's how
awesome.
much they liked how we trained stuff and worked with their advertiser base.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think they do that anymore. I probably could guarantee that. Well, Brad, we've got the official kind of the backstory here of where you've been, but can you lay out your path to digital marketing and specifically the ad side of digital marketing? Give a bit of a history here.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I got into web design in '95 as a hobby, right? Just, hey, this looks cool. I think this is going to be something.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1998, I had quit my job and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I found affiliate marketing and went, well, I could sit at home and make money. I'm like, really? And there wasn't paid search yet. So I started off as an SEO. And then GoTo.com launched in December, I believe, or October of 1998. I had to call them up and made my first account.
Mm-hmm.
Was doing well enough that I would have large companies call me how to help their stuff, and decided, all right, let's make an agency. So I started my first agency in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
They needed some software, so I got into software building, which one of our clients bought, and then my wife at the time, well, we weren't married yet. I had moved to Chicago to go to law school, and so I didn't really need to be in Pennsylvania anymore. So I moved to Chicago and joined a company called Local Launch, which you've probably heard of local data submission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We invented that in 2004. There was no industry before we actually started that in 2004. And so, we really built that scale, right? We had 110,000 SEO clients, 42,000 paid search accounts.
Wow.
And that was acquired by RH Donnelly, which you're in Indianapolis, so that would be your yellow page provider.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, went to doing a lot of training for a few years. And then, 7 years ago, I want to get back into software. And so we started Adalysis as so computers are very good at pattern recognition, right? And learning stuff, but they have no context of life.
Mm-hmm.
Humans have discerning thought, context, prior knowledge of what works, what doesn't work, and common sense. And so our goal was to automate recommendations so that a human could get out of Excel and data crunching and purely use the side of the mind, which is more discrete in handling decision making. And so that's really what we do, right? We automate a lot of all the math crunching,
Mm-hmm.
so the human doesn't have to do that and could really focus on, here's the ad creative, here's my strategy side, here is problems in the account we want to go solve that machine learning couldn't solve it because it has to do outside of that realm.
I actually really thought you were talking about how you build a cyborg. So this is much more cerebral area. I saw the human and the machine, and I'm just stuck on this. I really am. Anyway, So you're at this juxtaposition of the value that obviously the marketing, the creative brings to the equation, and from the analysis side of things, and I mean the analytical minded. There is so much to research. You have to be able to rely on the computer and its own interpretation to be able to pull that actionable data out of. So you did this back in 2007. So give us the progress of what you've seen over. We're at 12 years, right, into this. You've seen the continual maturation of this industry, right?
Yep. Well, we started this company in 2012.
Oh,
so 7 years. But I've been working with APIs and large scales for years. Yes. So when you look at the early parts of, I mean, machine learning was invented in the 50s, right? It's actually 70 years old now. It's we didn't have the computing power to really do stuff until the last 15 years with it. But computers are really strong at pattern recognition, anomaly detection, outlier analysis, and making decisions off of repeatable, predictable data. Now, those are two important words, right? Repeatable, predictable data. And what it struggles with is understanding if that data is repeatable and predictable because that's the way the world works, or if it's purely coincidence, right? So I could show you a chart that shows you that the more lightning strikes hit the ground in the United States, the more beef people in the United States eat. Now, those are unrelated things, right? They have nothing to do with each other. But a computer, right, may not know that. It sees, wow, lightning strikes and beef consumption are correlated. Maybe if there's a huge lightning storm, like you guys are having tornado warnings and lightning, that McDonald's should bid higher today, right? It's because you want to go eat more beef. Well, it's a ridiculous correlation, and a human can see that. A computer can't. Right now, what a computer is good at seeing is, hey, there's a pattern. Or it can say, hey, did you know Mondays we get tremendous amount of calls, we should bid more. And you look at your analytics and you say, wow, we get a lot of visits Sunday night, but we don't answer the phone on Sundays. So yeah, we really should bid more on a Monday morning because of that, right? And that's that human interpreting what the machine said and saying, yeah, this is something we should do.
Right.
And so a lot of times we let the machine do it all for us, which means it's bidding or making changes. It doesn't have to be bids, right? It's making changes based upon lack of context, right? Just because it sees a pattern, it wants to act upon it, where not all patterns should be acted upon.
So training that discerning factor right there, because what you're coloring is how reliance on AI can get a lot of advertisers into trouble. You have to be on the bridle. You have to be able to reel that back, because it can get into its own pattern of adjustments, right? But there's a larger context of building software to be able to recognize and create more of the self bumpers that software could possibly have, as opposed to relying on the nimble user that can interpret what they're actually seeing. Because you're going to be expecting PPC managers to be able to interpret a lot of patterns. You got to be able to put some sort of reinforcing agent around that data, right?
Yes, but in many cases, it's what we call prior knowledge, right? Where a human just lives life, right? And they acquire all this knowledge, so they can often look at something and say, that's just wrong, right? Or, hey, that makes a lot of sense, let's go with it, right? Which sometimes you call it instinct, but it's actually based upon something, right? It's based upon learning over years of time.
Right.
Computers don't have that. So a lot of times what you're really doing is, if you have someone who is educated, understands how things work, right? What rules the computers are playing in, and then has some common sense, which, as we know, some people are really good at it and some people just aren't. They often then can just look at something which doesn't have to be machine learning a lot of times, right? It could be a basic filter system and says, yep, that's something we should do. Nope, that's not something we should do. And make these quick decisions, right? And so we read a lot of these studies from whether they're MIT or Harvard or whatnot of how things work to see where humans versus machines really make a difference. So one of my favorites is out of MIT. They took a 16-bit video game from the 80s, right? Just think of your Frogger, Pitfall, whatever, right? Any one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave the game to people, and they gave it to, I believe it was 41 machine learning algorithms, but I could be off on the number.
Oh, wow.
And said, finish this game, right? But you only got rewarded, right? Because you only got rewarded in those games when you finished the actual game, the level. Humans under 5 minutes had finished it, no problem. Most finished under 2 minutes.
It took me like 3 days to finish Pitfall. I mean, come on.
No, but not one level. Only one level, right? Not the whole game, right? Single level. Yes. But once you got the patterns in Pitfall, it was pretty easy. but only one computer algorithm finished the game. And it took them 40 years of playing it to finish it.
40 years?
Years, because a human looks at a game and says, oh, it's a fire, I should jump. Oh, it's a ladder, I should climb down. Right? We can look at a game, and you didn't have instruction manuals for those games.
Right.
You could visualize it and know what to do. A computer doesn't know that. Right? So then they changed the game to be textures. Hey, let's not show them fire, let's show them plaid. Right? Let's not show them a ladder. Let's show them, a piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
And it now took humans about 5 minutes to finish it consistently. Again, only one computer could finish after 40 years. They then changed it to be every time you had a right move, you got a reward saying, hey, that was correct.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Machines beat humans. Right? But it took that much information to do so. So when you think of accounts that get 5,000 clicks a month across 2,000 keywords, there's no discernible pattern a computer can pick up on, right? It's too sparse.
Yeah.
Humans can start to say, okay, well, I need to aggregate it and do this and that. And so machine learning, when it doesn't get a huge amount of data, it either guesses, which is no better than a human, right? Or it just can't do anything. It just sits there and says, I don't have enough yet, feed me more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people are in trouble with machine learning, is trying to use it when they have low amounts of information.
So the example that you made is apropos, because as soon as you get closer to that immediate reward, yes or no, this was good, this was not, then the computers can certainly take over from there, because it's getting that information and basing its next strategy based on a very immediate response, right? It's only whenever you dive into the context that you're supposed to be aware of certain scenarios, certain word types. Intent is the biggest discussion here, or the backdrop for at least keyword advertising. The ability to get from that immediate reward-based concept to the understanding and being able to understand intent of a consumer, you got to feed that machine a lot of different steps along the way, right?
Yep. And it never knows intent, right? It's guessing that we've seen this pattern multiple times, end up with someone taking action, that kind of a pattern must mean intent, right? So it's a word used a lot, but machines often don't understand what that actually means, right? Because it's a human emotion, right? And that's where, when given the same circumstances, often humans and computers would make different decisions. And so a computer is not trying to always think logically. Humans are not logical, right? We do a lot of illogical things.
Amen.
and so computers are trying to guess how an illogical creature would do something when it's not programmed to be illogical, because that's counterintuitive to computer programming.
Exactly. No, absolutely. So here we are in the beginning, the evolution of artificial intelligence, and as it's applied to PPC. Can you give us a bit of a perspective of where we've come from with machine learning and where we are now in the pay per click or the search ad environment, the digital marketing environment that we're in?
Sure. So anything that's repeatable inputs can be automated. Reporting, right? I saw a study yesterday that said the average company spends 2 days a month on reporting. That's ridiculous, right? Reporting should be automated. It's the same thing every month, just different variables. Bidding has so many variables. It's pretty good at it. Now, is it right all the time? No, it's not right all the time. But does it get it right enough that it's usually worth it? Of course. Matching up similar audiences, saying, here's an audience pattern, find people like it. Well, that's pattern matching. Computers are very good at that. And so when it comes to those types of things, right, computers are good. But what's often not added to the conversation is a human's acceptable error rate of the machine. So if a machine bids correctly 85% of the time, wrong 15%, my CPA is 5% above what I want it to be, but I didn't have to touch it. I'm pretty happy with that, right? I'm like, all right, fine. If similar audiences, it's wrong half the time, but it's finding me new customers and I didn't do anything, I'm pretty happy. If it serves my brand ad once incorrectly, especially in a regulated industry, I'm in trouble, right? So I have a zero tolerance rate of how my brand is perceived, but I am with some of these other things. And so when we think of machine learning, we should really think about, where do we have high tolerances for it being wrong? That's actually the best place to start, because we're okay if it's taken off our plate, given to something else. Where if we forget to serve this ad disclaimer line, then the FCC or SEC is on us. Probably shouldn't leave that to a machine, right? That's too important.
Yeah. So you have to fence in some of those more sensitive areas, and you can still use machine learning, but you've got to govern it to a much higher degree than some of the more pattern recognition, automation tool sets. So, how does this apply? I mean, we're talking hypothetically to a particular degree of or I should say, we're speaking in general of these concepts. How have the PPC users been able to embrace and be able to train artificial intelligence, machine learning, I should say? What platforms have they been able to use, and how are we? Well, I'll stay there because I got a follow-up question. But where are we now? What can we use to be able to train machine learning?
So the vast majority of paid search people are not using machine learning that they coded themselves. They're using stuff that comes from the search engines. Every time you use automated CPA bidding in Google, you're using machine learning, but you're using their stuff. Right. So in many cases, PPC people specifically aren't training it. Where you see it start to happen, though, it's not a PPC only or an SEO only thing, right? It's a company who is applying machine learning to their customer databases, their CRM systems, their analytics systems, to start to see, hey, these patterns indicate we have a better consumer, or these people are more likely to have, returns. So we want to identify how they do that, so we can, bid down if they return a lot versus bid up. But they're not doing it for PPC. It gets used there. They're doing it for SEO, organic, right, across their entire book of business, and then pushing it back out. But that's right now, it's primarily a large company doing that. Everyone else is mostly just borrowing the technology, right, from the search engines, or if it's programmatic, the programmatic engine, whatnot.
So do we have a place where, well, let's just capitalize on that large corporation. They're bidding in context of their ad scheme, their marketing scheme, and it's a very unique fingerprint that they're training internally, right?
Yep.
So how does that cross over? How can we leverage some of that type of creativity, even so far as it's unique, into the kind of the greater opportunity to train machine learning even to a greater degree. It seems a little bit removed from the common user base, right?
You know what? The common user base is not going to build their own machine learning right now. I mean, so Google has put out some of their code and said, "Hey, here it is. Take it, use it. Right? Feed your data in the system, see what comes out." Right? So it's available there for anyone to go try out. The problem is data, right? In a lot of cases, or having the programmers on staff who understand how to program machine learning. They're so expensive right now. They're so in demand that your average business can't have a full-time machine learning, person on staff. So unfortunately, if you're a dev, you love PHP or Ruby, right, and you want to go play with stuff, hey, Google's got it there. You can actually download some of the things. You could feed stuff into the system and get information back. It's there freely available for a lot of people to utilize. But it takes someone really smart to build machine learning from scratch, and it's just not in most people's budgets to do it right now.
No, that's a shame. You're almost wanting to see the Raspberry Pi evolution of machine learning.
Yes.
Where
I love that analogy. Yes.
So it can get into the layman's terms, and we're going to find that we're going to have these blocks of functionality, right, that are primed for data, but are then able to be used and plugged in at the discretion of that. So, I mean, we're going to have to be a little bit juvenile or infantile in how we start really adopting machine learning, if in fact we're going to be able to get there as a general audience, right?
So when you think about it today, though, it's how do you collect everything you're going to need, right? So if most people use Google Analytics free version for their analytics, well, it doesn't store data past 3 months on individual users, right? And free people can't even get that data anyway. And you can only segment once. You can't segment your data 4 times. So it doesn't store enough, right, for you to probably use a lot of machine learning over it. So that means you got to be a premium account. Or does your CRM system talk to your analytics system? And if you have CRM because you're B2B, is that where you store your revenue, or do you store it somewhere else? And right now the data doesn't even talk to each other.
Right.
Right. So step one is really collecting data. Right. And it's funny enough, a lot of people don't collect enough. And I know it sounds weird in today of hey, we collect too much, but many people don't collect enough. And then do they actually talk to each other? Right? Does it sync properly? If you make an adjustment here, does it get changed there? Right? And until you do those two things, then machine learning is sort of like this thing that really doesn't matter to you yet until you get those first two done correctly.
So you really have to know what you're wanting to measure as well. And everybody's own data is unique. I mean, there's some commonalities against online users that you can track, but it's the scientific method. You got to know what you're wanting to test.
Well, and I think sometimes we say machine learning, right? Like it knows what question to ask, right? No, you as a user are saying, I want to ask the machine X, right? And then you feed it the data and you say, okay, is X true or false? Or what are the degrees of this? So you don't feed everything to a machine and it says, hey, here's 20 insights for you, right? It doesn't work that way right now. Maybe eventually it will, but right now you still have to know what to ask it.
So you got to form the language you're trying to interpret as well. So we are at the beginning stages of this journey, right?
Oh, most definitely.
And there's never going to be a place, especially within our digital age, where this is not going to be a not only a learning curve for the adapters of machine learning, but there's also going to be the growth of machine learning into itself, that there's going to be development and cogs that will be universal as we grow. But turning it back around, have you seen some experience of machine learning that has gone wrong?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, the best example, right, is probably Microsoft's bot. Like, what was it, 18 months ago or something? They launched a bot on Twitter, and evidently people can be pretty rude to a machine, and the bot turned into a racist cursing machine in like hours, right? And it was this horrible thing they had to pull back down, right? So there's many cases of chatbots turning evil, or one of the big things right now is machines don't often perceive, like, there's often bias, right? Because if your data is biased to a gender or a race or whatnot,
Right.
then the machine is also biased.
Oh man.
And so until you have a society that has no biases, since the machine learns based upon society's data, the machine inherits a bias. And that's where some of the real struggles from machine learning are coming into play, is learning a bias. And then how do you unlearn a bias if the data says there should be a bias?
Oh my. Well, you just threw us into a sociological conversation here.
That's where it often takes us, right? If it's even bidding for you, right? It's saying, hey, I want to bid higher for people who make more money than less, right? That's already a sociological question.
Yeah, it really is. And so I guess the question is, are we mature enough to handle this tool we've got, that we've created? I mean, it's the natural evolution of the pattern recognition side of things. But my God, I mean, are we secure enough in our own a non-biased realm? Do we even have a non-biased realm? Or are we by nature operating with biases that are immediately going to permeate into machine learning?
That's the question that the machine learning creators are trying to ask themselves right now.
Yeah.
Right. How do you take bias out of something when there's an inherent bias in all kinds of stuff, right? And that's a real struggle. I mean, again, pattern recognition doesn't really have a bias to it, right? But when you start making decisions, now suddenly it often enters in. If you're thinking, hey, we're an HR company, we're going to feed every resume into a system and have machine learning look at who we've hired in our resumes and give us our top candidates. If your hiring practices are biased, then all the data, and you're an HR company. I mean, this is where it's really tough at times.
Now, we have covered a story before regarding Google's focus on kind of that pursuit of creating an unbiased or stopping biased IA is called or AI. Sorry, DeepMind is the concept there, and they've been working on this for a while, and they've entered into this kind of multicultural absorption, right? Where you can minimize any individual region's bias by embracing everything. And you get into probably a very, what do you want to say, a very neutral position on everything. Can you give us some insights into that DeepMind side of things?
Yeah, in that case, I can't, right? But that sounds like it's it's using essentially the law of large numbers, that if you put enough stuff in there, you're no longer biased. But then I would have to say, if we took the world all over and we look at populations of countries, I mean, China is 1/7 of the world population.
Right.
So if 2 out of 7 people in China are biased, your data set is going to be biased.
Absolutely.
Right? It's too much. So to make that law of large numbers only works if the groupings as a whole, right, comes out to where they're even. So you got to have a country biased to paying women more than men. Then you need a country biased the opposite way. Then you have to have a country that's biased in overhiring minority groups and overpaying minority groups, and then someone biased the opposite way. I don't think the world balances out that way, right?
No, it doesn't. And the challenge in this concept is you're trying to remove bias, but the buyer's intent is natively bias. So if you plugged AI into this non-bias additional chip, right, and all of a sudden all of your ads are moving into this neutral space, you're still literally advertising into regions where there is some natural bias, right?
Yep, exactly.
So you're removing yourself even further from the consumer that you're trying to actually not only understand intent, but also trying to persuade.
Right, and this makes a lot of people nervous, right? So one of my favorite quotes, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but I'll be close, is from Rob Normand, who is the CEO of Group M for like 30 years. That in the age of machine learning, because of everyone uses the same thing, everything becomes neutral. The person with the most recognizable or responsive brand is the winner. So it actually makes the work of the marketers more important in a machine learning world, right? To have a brand that stands out as opposed to using the same as everybody else. Which gets back to humans.
Yeah, it really does. Heavy concepts.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of discussion is starting to really take hold, and obviously, Brad, you're a lead advocate of these discussions, because until we think in the right space, we're always just going to be using AI very rudimentary, right? It's not going to really advance to a large degree our strategies or from a marketing standpoint until we know how to train it. So the marketers, by and large, and a lot of times, you've got the right brain and left brain. You have the analytics and the more I don't say creative, but you've got the right side and the left side of the brain here. This is all converging, and a marketer has to now take on the mantle of a scientist, but also almost like a trainer of this AI to serve not only the greater good of machine learning, but also has to take those elements and bring them back to their own company. Man, that's a big undertaking for marketers that have never experienced this side of the equation before.
Yeah, which is also why, though, until machines buy from machines, right? So that it's purely based upon specs and not based upon a brand, a loyalty factor, a design factor. It's spec versus spec.
Right.
Until that happens, right? As long as humans are still with the buying power, which we will have for the foreseeable future in most things, right? Some things, we'll lose control of our fridges next as your fridge just reorders whatever. But it reorders whatever you put in it, right? And so that brand perception and brand loyalty will be incredibly important for marketers to instill in people, right? Why the buying power exists with the humans, because as soon as your fridge reorders your milk, whatever you put in there is what it reorders, right? So what was the last brand you put in there? What was the last brand of lunch meat, right, you put in your fridge? That's what's going to matter. And so there's sometimes we get lost in the numbers conversation and forget that, hey, the brand is actually what lives on for decades and hundreds of years. It's not the short-term marketing and the changes via radio, TV, machine learning, web, et cetera, that have sort of transpired among that time.
But we also have the responsibility of telling the refrigerator that we don't like the meat that we just bought, right?
That's fair. And if you're lazy, you're never going to tell it that, right? Again, right?
And keep on getting the same hot dogs all the time. All right, so we got a lot of responsibility as consumers. That's the whole other thing, is that's not only the marketers that can take advantage and be able to really make use of this new front, but at the same time, the consumers who are already savvy and from a user base. I mean, we as digital natives now have gone strides in giving feedback back to the machine learning. And Google itself, just the search tool itself, has been trained by its users, and Google has set up the machine learning to be able to take in that data, take in that intent, take in the choices made as you're searching. So where either doing it subconsciously or we're doing it inside of the platforms that are providing it. But we're very forthcoming of that type of data. It's just going to have to come home to really give all the aspects of where machine learning could go and it's going to be a hell of a responsibility for the consumer, right?
I would say the responsibility often fits with the programmer and the auditors of the program to make sure that they're actually understanding the consumers correctly and they're treating them fairly, right?
Mm.
And that's a big thing because the consumers are often gonna, go like, and this is where consumers are short-term responsible, not long-term responsible, right? So when someone sees, hey, I don't like what company X did, we're gonna boycott them. It lasts for a week or 2 weeks, and then you're like, but I really like company X's fries, or I really like the fact they've got lower prices. And they go back to company X.
Too many variables, man. You're throwing too many variables into the sauce.
So until consumers truly like say it to the machine, no, I'm done with this, right?
Right.
I mean, a lot of that brain and consumer behavior is, again, humans are illogical.
How do you program for fickle?
That's a great question. You figure it out, you'll be a very rich person.
All right, I'm gonna drop it there because it's really getting me into a conundrum. I'm thinking exponential variables all over the place. It's giving me a headache. Hey, Brad, we always we appreciate this, and every once in a while we're able to talk a bit more of the theory and the philosophy behind certain aspects of digital marketing, and we don't do it nearly enough because there is a reason why we see what we see in the spaces as consumers, but especially as marketers. It's great to be able to see these foundational concepts, and especially witnessing machine learning in its infancy. It's good to be able to see what our responsibilities are as marketers. So we certainly appreciate these type of insights. We always wrap up our show with asking a couple questions, and we certainly want to hear it from you with the backdrop of this philosophy. What bugs you about your industry right now?
Oh, you know what? I mean, I would really say a lot of it is actually around machine learning and people thinking, humans are going to lose their jobs to machine, which, and throughout history, as machines take job, actually more jobs are created that spend more.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the other part is, Google pushes its standards on marketers as opposed to people really letting themselves be creative in their own right,
Mm-hmm.
which has caused some issues. And last, I would say trying to automate because that's what the industry says you should do, not because you actually need it or it helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a level of automation which is good for the company, and a level which is probably bad for the company. And so automation doesn't exist for automation's sake, right? It exists to make you more efficient, or make more money, right? But that's that's an efficiency thing. If it's not doing that, then it's actually hurting you.
Hmm.
So we have a flow chart of how we decide to automate things and when we shouldn't automate it.
Oh my gosh. We'd love to be able to see that flow chart in its own. That's probably proprietary, right?
No, I can send it to you. It's published on the web, right?
Oh, yeah. We
right?
got to grab a hold of that because, man, if you're not ready for automation, or if you're not prepared to what automation is going to elicit from you, right? Or how you need to train it, you probably need to stay away from it.
It's good, but it can be bad, right? It's it's what's the Spider-Man quote, right?
With great power comes great responsibility.
There you go.
Yeah, and I'm a DC fan. I still know that quote. I don't know what's going on. Hey, conversely, Brad, what excites you about your industry right now?
You know what? The fact that when I started years ago, we spent a lot of time doing really boring bidding and putting reports together.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That's automated now, right? So what's really, because of automation, we can spend more time being creative, thinking strategically. And so, we really like to say, if we don't want to do it, or if it makes us more efficient, right? We do have that if we don't want to do it, right? We automate it. which means we can think about, being empathy and what humanness means in marketing, because again, we're talking to people, not a machine. And so automation, I mean, it excites me as well as, as much as you have to be careful. But what it does is it gives your brain more time to think about important things and not redundant things.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all hate building those spreadsheets, and we're now in a place where we can take advantage of a lot of these tools. That's well said, sir, and I certainly appreciate your perspective. Hey, how many continents have you been on so far?
6 so far.
6 continents.
We have 1 left.
Are you trying to create your unbiased? Are you trying to normalize your biasy there by going around the world?
You know what? My last one is Antarctica, which probably has like 5,000 people on it. So I don't think it's going to skew my data that much, right?
Well, you're going to have the penguin input there going on. Funny thing, actually, that's the only continent you're going to. My father actually did seismology testing in Antarctica.
That's awesome.
Some freaky rare facts for the Edge audience.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. It was like 40 degrees below zero, and they literally they were sleeping in igloos underneath the ice. It's a messed up sleeping bag work there. I mean, honestly, his sleeping bags were thick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable. Well, Brad, sorry for that little rogue thought. Hey, is there anything that we can promote for you today?
I mean, if you're a PPC marketer, you're looking to be more efficient, take a look at our platform, Adalysis, ADALYSIS.com. We automate recommendations so you can use your human brain to make decisions. So all we've been talking about are things we actually do, right?
Very good. And I appreciate you bringing that around. Adalysis.com, and we certainly recommend PPC marketers to embrace the new technology and be able to find where they can take advantage and really go into the steerage side of things. And honestly, if you're still doing spreadsheets, then you're doing a heck of a lot of busy work for nothing. Use the automatic tools that we have here, and with trusted advocates such as Brad, I mean, you're not going to go wrong. You certainly do want to be able to leverage these tools that are out there. Well, Brad, any final thoughts for the soon-to-be embracers of the machine learning, all the digital marketers out there that have just been scared to death by this conversation?
You know what? I'm going to quote Greg Norman one more time, right? So when machine learning, when we go back over the last 100 years of workers, we were initially automatons working in factories who did repeatable work with very little brain power. And then we became information workers, right? The rise of the white collar worker. We processed information. Now we can automate the information processing, which makes us imagination workers. And so as we think of like the next generation of people in the workforce, right? It's no longer, the factory, it's no longer the white collar. It's what you can imagine and how you can view that can be done now.
It's all right there for the taking.
Yeah.
Excellent. We certainly want our listeners to follow you on Twitter at BG Theory, as well as over at LinkedIn, eWhisper. What's eWhisper all about?
Gosh, I was originally many moons ago a creative author. And had a lot of short stories and songs and stuff published, and that was a song I'd written years ago, Echoing Whispers. So it actually was shortened to eWhisper when I was on the web by friends of mine. And so when I joined the Webmaster World in 2002 or something, I used it, and it's kind of followed me around for 17 years now. It has nothing to do with the web.
All right. Well, Brad, it's been a pleasure, and we certainly enjoy deep diving with these concepts, and we will certainly welcome you back to the show. Hopefully you won't take 3 years to come back around, sir, but by that time, our machine will probably be interviewing your machine, so we can all think to a greater good, right?
We have a beer, right, while the machine's do the work.
All right. So thanks so much, Brad, and we'll certainly catch you later.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
More than welcome. More than welcome. Well, thank you to listening to Edge of the Web Radio and watching us here on our video platforms as well as streaming. Be sure to jump in and ask questions of our guest. We certainly would open the doors for any live streamers to think some great questions. And now I'm trembling on the words. I've exhausted myself, guys. Anyway, hey, jump into the live stream when you can, and certainly give us some feedback on all of our audio assets. And if we're not there where you need us to be from an aggregation platform or podcast listening, just let us know, and we'll certainly get our feed there. Thank you to our special guest, Brad Geddes. It was great to be able to dive into that cul-de-sac. I tell you what, that's some interesting concept there, to say the least. So check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Who are we going to be talking to next week?
Next week, we got Joel Kletke. We're talking case studies and how you can use that in our marketing.
Oh, sweet. We all need a discipline in that, because that's a tough thing to get around. Hey, check out Edge of the Web Radio, and hopefully I'll have my words next time. Have a great time, and don't be a piece of cyber driftwood, please. Bye-bye.